So God is saying that your enemies and opposers are starting to realize that they got duped. Satan only cares about himself, right? And he knows that as long as anybody walks in his wicked, evil ways, they're not going to be redeemed and saved as long as they are under his thumb. He knows that. And his goal, as we know, is to just ruin people. So therefore, even those that follow him lose in the end. They don't ever come out on top. They continue to follow him because for a while they think they're on top because they look at life in the physical way. So I said this in past words, but they see you with more money, they see themselves with more money than you. So then they think, well, see, I am better because I have more money than him or her. They see that, maybe they have more friends than you do. So then they're like, see, I'm a better person. I'm a good person. They're wicked evil because I have friends and they don't. They see that they have more material things than you do, maybe a career, maybe a better car, things like that. Things that you can't take with you when you die, right? Just things that are earth created. And they think that that's the best, right? So God is saying that they've already received their promised land on earth. They've already received all their rewards and treasures because for however long it may be in each individual enemy's case, they were rejoicing with these material goods, these material things. And because the world is full of evil and ran by Satan, it makes you believe that if you don't have these material things, that you're less than or you're of no value or things like that. But again, I've said it a million times, if we recall Jesus didn't have a mansion. He didn't have 5 cars. He didn't have a fancy career or, a big following on Instagram or Facebook. You know what I mean? He didn't have these things. He was what the world makes you out to be deemed as unworthy of having less than. Those are the very things that Jesus had, right? So therefore, technically, the less you have, and the more humble you are, the more you're actually like Jesus. So technically, the purer and more righteous you're seen in God's eyes, right? And at the end of the day, all that matters is how God sees you, right? So God is saying these enemies have already been rewarded on earth, and that was their choice to make. When you started your journey, you wanted to have riches and this and that and all that. And maybe still now, of course, because the world is completely controlled by money, you want to have money, of course, because you need to eat, you need to pay your bills, you need to just maintain the basic fundamentals, right? But God is saying is that he has provided those things for you, right? He has, and he will provide those things. But he doesn't want to give you too much because then you'll become like the wicked, right? But at the same time, God knows that if you're a publicized child of God, he doesn't want you struggling because that makes him look bad, right? Because then the evil ones can turn around and not only gloat in their so-called status over you, their riches over you, but then they can say, oh, well, see, he or she is a follower and she can't even pay her rent, or he can't even keep his bills going. You know what I'm saying? So, of course, it's within reason. Like, God's not going to completely spoil you because he didn't even spoil his own son monetarily, right? He was born in a manger in a barn, right? So it's the same idea, but at the same time, Jesus never went without. He had the ability to turn water into wine. You could obviously make money off of a gift like that, right? He could feed the 5,000 and turn like 2-3 fish and 2-3 loaves of bread into enough to feed thousands and have some left over. So how would Jesus ever go without drink or food when he's got those born-in innate gifts and capabilities? He wouldn't, right? So therefore, Jesus wasn't out working a job, paying himself and stuff. His heavenly Father, his Lord God, took care of him, right? And not only that, but used Jesus to take care of others too. So God is saying that when you're a follower of him, that's how he'll bless you and have you and keep you. And the world likes to make it look and seem like, well, because we don't have, you or I don't have millions of dollars or millions of this or that, that then we must be, baby, we must be, weak or something in the world's eyes and world society or something. But God is saying that no, technically having that about you is what makes you more righteous. It excels you all the more. And the fact that you're able to make do, right, is what the Lord pays attention to. Someone that has $1 million and doesn't struggle to take care of themselves and could take care of others but doesn't, or maybe they do, but he doesn't find that to be as successful as somebody who every day, works hard to try to maintain their lifestyle and the lifestyle of those close to them that they care about, right? So there's that. And then the other thing, Lord, what did you want me to say as well? Sorry, Lord had something else put on me that he wanted me to mention. Just give me a second. Sorry, I'm doing dishes. It might be a little bit loud. I hope the background noise isn't too loud. I have to stop and think. Hold on. Oh, yes. Thank you, Lord. Sorry, it slipped my mind because he sidetracked me, but he brought me back around. Yes. So the Lord is saying that Satan's followers are starting to realize, whether they were intentional followers or not, that, like I've said in past words already, the lots have been cast. The decisions have been made already. There's no changing things as of January. So don't get me wrong. The enemy's been hard at work at trying to do a switcheroo, like I've said before, and trying to give you what they're like. So they've had a loaf and you've had a slice and they were fine with that. But now that the tables are going to turn and they're starting to physically see that your words are correct, the prophecies are true, that their loaf is going to whittle down to a slice and your slice is going to multiply to a loaf. They've been hard at work, since the end of December and all throughout this month of January, just to try to do whatever they can to turn these tables around. But all they're doing is just adding more hardship and more frustration to their lot and their pile, and digging a deeper hole for themselves. And the Lord is covering you through everything, and it's just going to be all the more blessed you are. See, that's the thing, is that every time the enemy takes a hit at you, they think that they're succeeding, but they're not. But God keeps a scorecard. So every time they send a hit at you, that's another lick that they're going to get back on themselves. So when they send a hit out at you, God's like, okay, chalk another one up for the enemy. They're getting that one sent back to them. So say they try to make you poor, they're going to just be even poorer. So say God was going to whittle them down to $1,000 a month. Now that they've sent that hit out at you, now it's whittled down to 500. If they send another hit, it's going to get whittled down to 200, etc., etc. And then say God was going to bless you with, just say, I'm just using terms to understand. Say he was going to bless you with 5,000 a month. Due to that hit, now it's going to be 8,000 a month. So that's what I'm saying, is that say they were going to go down from 10 grand a month to 5 grand a month, and you were going to go from 1 grand a month to 5 grand a month. That's what the Lord has already had planned. As of January 1st, the lots have been cast, like I said. Every time the enemy sends a hit at you, their 10,000 has went down to 5. Now their 5,000 goes down to 4, to 3, to 2. And so they're just burying themselves. But then meanwhile, that's not just all. They've rewarded you. So now your $5,000 or $8,000 allotment now becomes 9, becomes 10, becomes 11. So now at the end, you end up even higher in the blessing field, and they're even lower in the hardship field than what y'all started out with to begin with, right? So the enemy needs to just stop. They don't see this because they're in physical life. So they still see that, baby, that physically they're ahead of you. They see this. So therefore they're like, oh, well, these prophetic words are just junk. Like, this isn't real. This person, take this. This person isn't, go to the room. This person isn't really who they claim to be. They're not really favored. They're not really this, because I still see me. Yeah, I've took some hits. I see that, but I'm still doing ABC and they're still doing ABC. Not much has changed. So let me just keep on going. But God is saying, well, they haven't seen nothing yet, right? Like it hasn't gotten, like, it's still developing. And meanwhile, while that's going on, they're continuing to still send these hits. And God is using me to say, hey, in regards to an enemy, if you come in contact with this message, that you might want to just quit while you're ahead, because for one, your plan isn't working. For two, it's not accomplishing what you thought it would. And for three, it's technically just making things worse for yourself. So, if you're already having to go without food, say the Lord has designed that you're going to go without food maybe a day a week. Now he's going to make it so that you go without 3 days a week, and say he was going to bless his chosens 5 days of the week. Now he's going to bless them 7. Like, I hope it's making sense. So it's not achieving what the enemy thinks it's going to achieve, for one. For two, they're trying to scramble to see if they can find whatever they can to try to switch things up. But they're just resorting back to old tactics, like the tactics that they used in 2023. And if those tactics didn't work in 2023 because they're starting to see the manifestation of this changing going on, it's starting to happen. And that's the other thing too, is the enemy expects these things to be implemented within like a snap of a fingers. Like, so if they hear a prophetic word or a prophet say, yeah, so the prophecy here is that the enemy's gonna drop from level 10 down to level 3, and you yourself, the righteous, are gonna go from level 3 to level 10. They're like, well, I heard that spoke to me on January 7th, and it's now January 21st, and I haven't seen anything of that, so that must not be true. So let me just keep on sending hits and doing this and doing that. All the things I did last year, because I don't have any other tactics. I don't have any other quote unquote weaponry other than to do these same, overused, predictable, boring strategies that weren't fostering anything for me in the past. And if they were successful, then why am I currently, as of 2024, starting to see the unfolding of these prophecies? But yet they can't accept defeat, and it's not even them specifically, it's because Satan won't accept defeat, so he's pushing them. So it's kind of like the edge of a cliff, and he's led them to believe that they're far, far, far away from the edge. Like, oh no, you're nowhere near that edge. You're good, you're safe. And so they've bought into this false sense of security that's not even real, not realizing, because they're focusing on the world around them. So instead of looking how close they are to that edge at their feet, they're not looking there. They're paying attention to the people on the right and the material items on the left. They're looking at these two things. And so that's God's giving me that analogy, and it's a good one. So picture that these people that go against you, the wicked, are standing up at the edge of a cliff, and it's like a huge drop off. And if they fall down, they're either going to perish or be very extremely hurt, right? Human nature makes us aware, our instinct of our surroundings, to where we see that and we're like, what are you doing? You're pushing me to the edge, right? But because Satan is the master of delusion and master of deceit, he's deceived them and delusioned them to where they think that they aren't that close to the edge. And so anytime that the Lord has tried in his mercy and grace to use his prophets, and that's the other thing, they do listen to prophetic words, and that's because the Lord has led them to prophetic words, because he's been trying through like myself and other prophets to try to help them, to warn them, so that when the option was to turn the ship around, when it was available, they could have done so. But they chose to just continue on with business as usual and to sneer at the Lord. So therefore the Lord's like, okay, go ahead and keep doing what you're doing then. I'll let you, because we have free will, right? So because they kept doing what they were doing, the Lord wasn't able to cover them like he can with the righteous. So therefore Satan was trying to push them to the edge of the cliff like he does with all of us. But those that walk with the Lord and walk in holiness and righteousness, they're covered and protected and shielded. So therefore the Lord won't let Satan push them close to the edge. And if he does let them sometimes to chastise, discipline like he does, or correct for correction, he only lets Satan give them a nudge or two. And then if they get too close, the Lord just gracefully pulls them back, right? But these wicked and sinners, not only have they thumbed their nose at you, but they've done it to God, who's the ultimate, judge and jury, right? Is the Lord. So therefore, the Lord doesn't want Satan to push them right as close to the edge as he is. They're in the danger zone. They're like right at the edge, like the edge of the edge. And the Lord has been trying to save them. He spent all of 2023, well, many years, but specifically 2023, trying to save them and cover them and pull them back. And had they just repented and stopped coming at you and stopped doing the wicked things that they do and just revered the Lord, he would have been able to strike while the iron was hot, and act while he had the option, right? But because they kept choosing free will and ultimately chose Satan, Satan was able to govern them and kind of say to God, well, they made their choice, like you're giving me the free reign to do what I do. So that's what he was like. God had no choice. He didn't say, yeah, take him out, Satan. That's not how God works. He's of love. But he tried with all of his love and might. It'd be like if you're trying to get your partner to be with you, you love them and you're trying to convince them, like, no, you're making a mistake, be with me. They have free will. You can't control and change, even though your heart's coming from the right place. If they're hell-bent on leaving you and going to be with somebody else who's wicked and impure and they're making a poor choice, you can try with all your love in your heart to convince them, to explain to them, to talk. But if they're hell-bent on walking out and going, you cannot stop them. You cannot interfere, right? And even if you try to, it's not going to go your way because they have chosen their own free will. They have chosen wickedness over righteousness. And we're all given that. So we give that option to each other on the planet, but God gives that option to us as well. So imagine you just say, okay, off you go then. And then they're the ones that are going to learn the hard way and come back to you, right? That's exactly the same scenario with God, is that they're going to have to learn the hard way because God cannot interfere with the free will. He's tried, he's done it, and he's used his prophets to do it, to put it on a human perspective. Because if these people can't hear from God and they don't revere God, he understands that. So he's used a human, just like he used his son Jesus. He used Jesus through himself, like God manifested himself through Jesus to try to explain to the people, right, about how they were doing wrong. And some chose to listen and some chose to, go against him, right? It's the same thing. God has chosen you. That's how you're a chosen one. God has chosen you. If you're speaking in some way, prophecy or whatever, in regards to a pastor, in regards to the wicked, he has chosen you to be a human vessel, a voice that speaks on behalf of the Lord to the people, just like Jesus was, to try to make people understand. A righteous, holy person that hears from the Lord doesn't need to rely on a fellow human to hear from the Lord. They can hear from the Lord themselves. So God uses specific chosen ones to be his vessels that he works through, just like his son Jesus was, those that are true and genuine anyway, to try to get at the wicked on a human level. Because God is saying, okay, well, I've tried to speak to them. They walk too close with Satan. Therefore, my voice is blocked out. They don't hear me. They don't know me. When I try to say stuff, Satan tries to make them think that that what I'm saying isn't right, it isn't true, he tries to trump my voice, whatever. And because the wicked don't have discernment, they don't know whose voice is which. So therefore, unfortunately, they ultimately end up listening to Satan and they buy into Satan's lies and deceit. And then they end up, it says in the Bible, my people perish for lack of knowledge. Some of these people are people of God. And that's why God has allowed you to go through so much, is because he wants to prove to them and to you that he's went to the maximum to try to get these people to listen, to turn, just like Jesus went through the maximum just to try to save souls, right? And once that was it for Jesus, how could God continue? And it's the same with you. Once the max has been reached, he can't continue. That's why God told me no more warnings, because the max had been reached, right? Like the Lord washed my hands of it, and he washed Jesus's hands of it too. But the people still continued on sinning. So anyway, because of all of that, Satan's been able to govern these people, and even though they were God's people, but they'd become Satan's people by choice, to push them closer and closer to the edge, right? Now, again, God has used human vessels to try, and himself, he's been speaking to these people too, do not be mistaken, just to try to wake these people up, because they're, with the edge analogy, you'd be coming closer and closer to it, right? Therefore, more and more in danger. He's been trying to warn them of the danger up ahead, but they've been ignoring it for months. And while they've been ignoring it, Satan's been given the green light to keep giving another nudge, another nudge, another nudge, and there's nothing pulling them back. But at this point, Satan's been able to take full control of them through their reprobate mind, that he's been able to convince them to not look at the edge. So they were 3 feet from the edge. Then they became 2 feet. Now they're like 1 foot away. And they're starting to be aware of the fact that they're that close. They're starting to see through Satan's veil, but it's too late. They're now 1 foot away. I would feel more comfortable being 5 feet away from the ledge than 1 foot, but they are that close. And they're still being deluded by Satan because he doesn't care about them. He knows that they're about to go over, but he doesn't care. So therefore, it is what it is, right? And it would be great if they could just wake up now and see, and then they could come back. But they think that it's going to be like the snap of the fingers all the time. And because they're not seeing the snap of the fingers manifestation, because God works in his own timing, things take a long time sometimes. They're thinking that they're not as close as they really are. So it's, again, all an delusion, right? And they're focusing on things that don't matter while they're getting their physical body is being pushed closer and closer to this edge by Satan. It is what it is. They're seeing on the right all this money and all this power and all this control and whatever that they think they have, but they don't. They don't have all the money and the control and power. Again, that's a delusion as well. Then on the other side, they're seeing all their friends and what will people think of me and things that don't really matter, again, and their looks and all physical stuff, all surface level stuff, superficial things. That's what they're paying attention to. And so the righteous that see what's going on, myself and others, are going, do you not see? You're right at the edge now. We've been warning you for months that you're getting closer and closer and closer to it. We've been exhausting ourselves. And while the whole time we've been doing this, trying to warn, you've been attacking us, thinking that you're going to be able to put us in the position you're in. But as I stand and look and see, you're the one that's being physically pushed by Satan, given the okay by God, and you're now a foot away from that edge. It can't get more dangerous for you. But yet, because of the delusion, they still somehow think that they're going to magically, in a snap of a fingers, be pulled back from the edge immediately. And because they're not, they think it isn't what it is. Or they think that you can switch spots with them and that you're at the 11th hour, you're going to be where they are and they'll be where you are. But God is saying they're sadly mistaken, because as of Jan 1st, which was now not a week ago, but now 3 weeks ago today, these lots have been cast. They're in the position they're in, no change. You're in the position you're in, no change. Now, of course, there's no limit or time limit on repentance, right? And being delivered from sin. And that's their only course of action at this time, is to just, if they're waiting for a snap of a finger, so is God. God is waiting for them to snap their fingers and come back to him and try repenting. And I don't know what happens from there. I don't know. That's not up to me to predict or determine. That's God's judgment, right? But he's the judge and ruler of the courts in 2024. I put that word out back last year in November. So he's going to dictate and determine and decide who's going to possibly fall back from the ledge and who's not, who's going to go over, right? But at this point, he's putting me to say that all of these wicked that have been in such scenarios as I'm describing, they're right at the edge and they've been being pushed towards it for months. So the time that you had, it's like when your gas tank of your vehicle, you don't want to fill it up when the light comes on, because you don't know how long you have till you get to the station, right? You want to fill it up when it gets to E, and even that is a danger zone. But I'd rather, go get some gas when my gas tank meter's on E than when it's on fumes, on green, or not green, sorry, on E light on, low fuel light on. When that comes on, it's too late. I don't know if I have 2 minutes or 10 minutes. I don't know, right? But if I'd filled up 2 days ago when I was on E, I probably could have been okay, right? It was still the danger zone, but not as bad. That's what the Lord is saying. And sometimes it's hard for me because I see things from a very high spiritual place. So to try to put it into layman's terms, human verbiage, is difficult. It was for Moses and it is for me. But that's why the Lord gives me analogies, because he's hoping that he'll use me to the bitter end, to the point of me looking foolish, just to try to say what needs to be said in any way, shape, form, or fashion to try to get these people to understand. Okay? And if you yourself are righteous and understanding of what I'm trying to say, then do your duty as a soldier for Christ and go and tell these people, don't be fearful of it. It is what it is. They're at the edge of the cliff. There's no more room. Don't be fearful. Don't be prideful. None of that. At the risk of looking foolish, it doesn't matter. The Lord will reward you. Go and say what he's saying, because your duty as a Christ follower is to save souls. No matter how you do it, whether you preach to people, whether you prophesy to people, whether you're just none of these things and you have family members around you that you see on the edge and you're aware of it, God has given you that word or that discernment in yourself. it is your duty to say something, right? Even at the moment that they're going over the edge, something should be being said, right? We should never turn a blind eye to the wicked and to sin when we're followers of Christ Jesus. So anyways, I hope this helps someone. I hope it blesses you. I hope it makes sense, and God bless.